This is update for January 18, 2023, day 329 of the war and of the date update. So I'm just gonna do, it's gonna be a quick video. So first, strategic updates, and we're gonna look first at Russia, what's going on there. Economical situation is getting worse there. The export is getting really killed. Mentioned that natural gas export is essentially done, and that's a huge part of the income of the foreign currency inflow to Russia. Basically, think about this as a revenue. And so there was some specific data that came out on the foreign currency surplus. So basically, by how much inflow of foreign currency exceeds outflows. So in the simple terms, again, it's revenue minus expenses. So the most interesting is dynamic. So in October it was positive 20 billion. In November it was positive 10 billion. So as you can see, like dropping by 2 times. And then in December it was positive 1.7 billion. So you can see it's nosediving at exponential speed. So probably in January it's definitely going to be negative, and at that point, and that's going to reflect, on the financial situation of Russian state and Russian currency, and eventually it will affect everyone because the war is expensive and everyone will start paying it. Before, it was paid for with the export of the resources from Russia. Now situation is getting pretty quickly into negative, and it's going to start affecting life of average Russian citizens, and they will start feeling on themselves situation, the war situation. Then there was I guess briefing or interview with Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, where he very clearly stated there's no peace. There's not even the terms that Ukraine wants, which territorial integrity is absolutely unacceptable to Russia, which is sort of no surprise. The other important part that he said, actually, that wasn't, I guess, picked up as much, is that he said that that Russia will not allow any military asset on the neighboring territories. Basically, what this really means is like any territory, neighboring country that has any military asset that Russia considers dangerous for itself can be attacked. So Ukraine is just, let's put it this way, first one. But from that angle, that includes Finland, that includes obviously the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and it includes Poland. So, so as you can imagine, those countries are fully aware of that. They realize that they're going to be next domino to fall if Ukraine falls. For that reason, they were supporting so strongly Ukraine, and it's very logical, very natural in that way. But it was interesting that it was openly stated by the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs. Then let's switch a little bit to China, US, and Netherlands. So if you remember, US is actively inhibiting China's semiconductor manufacturing capabilities, or build out of those, by preventing lithography technology getting into China. And the main producer is ASML, which is Dutch company, and then they use optics from Carl Zeiss, which is German company, to actually in that lithographic equipment. So they actually kind of like go hand in hand. Basically, SML cannot exist without Carl Zeiss, and Carl Zeiss is also, to extent the biggest customer is ASML. So they you know they go, as I said, together. And so Dutch minister said that they're not agreeing to the restrictive U.S. policies with respect to China, with respect to export of semiconductor manufacturing equipment to China. And the reason for that is essentially Europe is all of this strong industrial capabilities in Europe, which are geared most towards manufacturing equipment to manufacture, some other goods, right? So it's not in a way kind of like a derivative. And all of that export and all of that industrial capabilities in Europe essentially focused on supplying China with manufacturing equipment. And if you don't have that, if you destroy that ability to export to China, that manufacturing equipment, essentially Europe will lose significant portion of its industrial capacity. And obviously that really means significant reduction in the quality of life, standard of living, and so on. So in a way, this is, I'd say, natural conflict that's brewing up between Europe and the US, because US is getting more and more on the collision course with China. At the same time, for Europe economically, colliding with China would be, I wouldn't say suicidal, but let's say you're gonna lose a leg and arm, and obviously nobody wants that. So it's interesting to see how this will develop, but potentially it could be big sort of rift in the NATO and in the Europe and so on. I'm not saying it's happening tomorrow or anything, but as the whole situation sort of develops, we'll see how it's all gonna play out. Whether there is an option, and then also I forgot to mention that the price for natural gas in Europe is hitting, I think, $600 or even lower per 1,000 cubic meters. And even I think a US company called EQT offering to supply basically natural gas from the US at, I think, 350 or 380 US dollars per 1,000 cubic meters, which is essentially what Gazprom was supplying at, and actually even lower, because Gazprom was between 4 to 500 US dollars. So, so as you can see, eventually market works things out. It just needs time. So, and Europe can have sort of viable alternative that makes basically industrial production viable there. But unfortunately, what's probably going to happen is all of this energy policies that focus on unviable sources of energy will remain in place, and all of that is going to be, opportunity from the US will be neglected, and let's say, Europe will pursue this damaging approach of, relying on intermittent source of energy such as wind, solar, and so on. So again, just want to highlight that the root of the problem is inside Europe, and the whole problem is generated inside of Europe, inside of the political class in Europe, and I guess general population that doesn't really understand what they are voting for. It's not coming from Russia. It's not coming from the US. It's deeply European problem, and obviously that means that only Europe can solve its own problem. Now let's actually switch to Ukraine. Quick update on the energy distribution system. Things are more or less the same, meaning it's in coma, pretty bad coma right now. There is very clearly not enough generation capacity. It's unfortunately there's not enough detail what exactly was damaged, because Ukraine still has those nuclear power plants, and theoretically that should be, even if all of their natural gas and coal power generations are destroyed, the nuclear should be still enough. And then plus Ukraine started importing energy from Europe, from Poland. So in theory that should work, but apparently there are other bottlenecks, meaning in the distribution system as well there are problems. So I think there you're getting to the point when there are multiple problems at multiple levels, and effectively the system sort of paralyzed. It's almost like, in a way, like think about like heart attack. Your arteries don't work and your heart doesn't work, and it's just like you're getting multiple hits at multiple areas. And that's just where it stands for now. Then let's actually do walks through the front line. For those who just want to hear that, there is not much over news there for now. But let's do a walkthrough starting from the very north, and we're gonna do it in a clockwise fashion, as always. So the situation along the state border is relatively quiet, fairly low activity there. Now let's jump to the North Luhansk front line. So Russian troops are continuing their attacks here, kind of like in the middle, trying to destroy these Ukrainian bridgeheads. So far, without much success, things remain status quo. But overall, I would say initiative probably is in Russian hands in this sector of the front line at this point. It's not firmly, but let's say if you have to say, okay, where is it? Closer, I'd say Russian hands. Now let's move to the North Donbass, where things are the worst for Ukraine. So Wagner mercenaries continuing their attack. As I said, it's very straightforward, very obvious. They're trying to build sort of launching pad here and create sort of outflank Bakhmut from north. So that's very clear direction of the new attack. No new sort of advances here so far, but they don't happen overnight, so it can take another 5 days without anything moving here. Then in the southern area, the Russian troops continuing their attacks in Klishivka, Kurdyumivka, out of Kurdyumivka. The more concerning, and I don't have confirmation for this, but apparently Russian troops managed to establish bridgehead on the western side of this Donbass freshwater channel that I mentioned a couple of times. That is, in theory, not good natural defensive barrier, but as soon as I confirm, I'll mention that. But there's strong indication that they managed to kind of create a bridgehead and now actually trying to attack straight west out of that bridgehead. Once I have more, as I said, I'll let you know. So that's sort of, here is also always a very straightforward situation, right? Russian troops specifically a Wagner group, wants to outflank Bakhmut from south and essentially force withdrawal from Bakhmut. And that essentially next defensive line is gonna be along this freshwater channel. But the problem already is here, that it's potentially breached here, and this could be sort of leverage that Russian troops are going to be using, even like, for example, if they going to be making more advances here, right? So this is going to may force hands of Ukrainian troops here much faster if they just going to be moving along this channel in this northwestern direction, as you can see. So this is potentially pretty bad development, but it's not 100% certain. So we'll see if this is real or this is just some propaganda misinformation. So Now let's move south. Let's look at central Donbass front line. So here, Russian regular troops, regular army attacking without really any success. So that's just gives more support for Wagner Group, basically, in their sort of negotiations with the Russian president. He even if he, let's say, doesn't like the strengthening of the Wagner Group and its head, uh, as much as he doesn't like it, he has to kind of you know allow them to continue doing what they're doing, because that's the only source of success so far. And they have very strong support, sort of moral, emotional support among many like Russian troops and just in the population. It's just naturally, if someone is succeeding, everybody just sort of joining that force. So that's a situation there. So it does look that this sort of old Soviet Russian military faction is not gonna win. It's basically gonna lose, probably, unless something drastic happens, and that would be sort of totally by surprise. But so far it's losing, and Wagner Group is gonna continue, and I'm sure they will try also to expand their influence and use their successes. So for now, if they manage to capture Bakhmut, then they really can demand a lot. And so that's going to be, again, very important and critical, because if they fail and got stuck and bogged down there, then again, the Russian generals will use that against Wagner Group. So, things are not sort of straightforward for Wagner Group, but so far, I think obstacles are out of their way, at least for now. Now let's look at quickly at Zaporizhya front line. Things here are sleepy and quiet. Sleepy, obviously, in the terms of there are no attacks, large-scale attacks. Otherwise, it's obviously not sleepy and quiet. That is sort of figurative speech. Yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow. Bye-bye.